you so much. And I love it when I can see real faces moving. Thank you so much for those of you who are brave enough to be real-time live. It makes it a little weird to stare at cute little pictures, but hi, thanks for doing that. So my name is Tiffany Cross, and I am so thankful, Vicki, for always being included. It's just such a blessing to know you, of course, and I don't know, I just adore you. So thank you for including me. This is now our 16th year in business. 16 years in business. And it's funny, I told Vicki early on, I used to not want to tell my story because when we were kind of new in business, my story was still a little fresh. And I was of the kind of the approach of, I didn't want anyone to know my story, which is bizarre because it's really kind of what makes people know, like, and trust you when they feel like you can relate. So I'll give you the quickest version of it. So back in 2004, I moved to Temecula from San Diego with my fiance at the time. And we really didn't want to move to Temecula. I wanted to stay in San Diego. I loved being a San Diego girl. And sadly, the home prices back then were crazy. It was like, I want to say we looked at just a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom condo in the Gaslamp district where I was living at the time, downtown. And it was $525,000 at that time for a 1-bedroom condo with no parking spot. You had to just drive around in circles and pray that you could park in front of your condo. We didn't have kids. We didn't have pets. So when I was just dead set on it. And my fiance at the time said, let's just go for a little drive. And I want to show you this place called Temecula. So we got in the car. And I remember back then thinking that Escondido was like the most northernest place in the whole world because I just never went that north. And we showed up in Temecula and we just absolutely fell in love with it, bought a home. And at the time, the cost of the home was about $440,000 for a home in Red Hawk. If you guys are familiar with Red Hawk in Temecula. And it was in the fairways. It was one of the smaller homes, but it was $440,000. Our mortgage was $3,300. Wow. And as little young people, we just didn't even think about it. We're like, well, we got to make it work. So we got to get side jobs and side hustles and make it work. And we did. For 2 years, we did lived paycheck to paycheck and made all of our bills. But the mortgage was $3,300. Flash forward, we were in a funky loan, a 0 down, adjustable loan, like many people were in back then. And sure enough, the loan went adjustable. I want to say it was like a 12-month or something silly. And it went from $3,200 to $5,100 a month for our mortgage. And I don't even remember how that's possible. I don't know if it was that they didn't calculate taxes correctly. There was just everything wrong. Everything happened wrong. And so at the time, we just couldn't afford to be there, but we didn't know that yet. We weren't willing to accept it. And what we did is we decided to get into credit card debt, to put our lifestyle on credit cards to be able to afford this crazy amount of mortgage. And then when it went adjustable, there was a prepayment penalty. You guys remember that story. So we were some of the first probably in our entire neighborhood to have a short sale. And in that process, it was like humble pie central. I mean, we cashed out my husband, at that time we were married, 401k to be able to afford our bills, and just still couldn't make it work. So long story short, we ended up short selling our dream home, our first home, and having to relocate. And we relocated to a place called Menifee, which many of you love and live there. And frankly, I ended up falling in love with Menifee. But at the time, friends, it wasn't really the Menifee that we know today. There was Coco's. We had Coco's. Coco's and a really good pizza place called Nina's. I don't know if any of you guys remember it. I don't think it's there anymore. But that was it. And in that time period, I went from hardwood floors on a golf course to linoleum, blinds. It was just craziness, but it was an amazing opportunity for me to humble myself and learn from my mistakes. And at the time saved my marriage, frankly, because we were in such traumatic stress over our financial situation and hadn't been married that long, frankly. So in that period of time, we sought out to find a company to help us get out of our situation. And we couldn't. And I geeked out like I do on all things Tiffany, and couldn't find anything from San Diego to Los Angeles that was legal and ethical, that didn't cost at least $1,800 up front. So at the time, if you have credit challenges, you don't have $1,800 either. So in most cases, I should say. So that being said, I couldn't find anything. So my husband at the time decided, let's become the company that we wished we had when we needed it. And that was truly the biggest blessing that came of everything, was us figuring out that the Department of Justice was going to need to be our best friends, that they were going to need to approve us every year, that they were going to need to vet our processes, the way we remove things from credit. And frankly, the very first thing they asked me back in, was it 2006, when I was starting this business, was, what does your credit look like? I'm like, oh boy. I now own a credit repair company and I have a 590 FICO. Not a good look. So there was a lot involved in that. So I always tell that story because, you know, here we are 16 years later. We have grown to the point that we are considered, frankly, the top 10 credit repair companies in the state of California. That is not a law firm. The Department of Justice not only, the Department of Justice not only approves us, but actually recommends us. We are legally allowed to be worked. We work with banks from Chase, Citibank, you name it. Almost every car dealership, finance company, and mortgage lender in our area and even nationwide has vetted us and allowed us to be on their approved vendor list. So I'm grateful that we have a story, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be as relatable and as able to help and facilitate what we do. So so that's there's a lot of twists and turns in that story. But I'll tell you, before we jump into the rest, flash forward, it is now, 3 years ago, and I went through an unexpected divorce. We're co-parenting now together, but it was a very traumatic time. And it's interesting because over the last 16 years of doing this, you know, you become a little bit calloused sometimes in anything. It kind of becomes so common, or so, you know, something you just do every day, whether it's real estate or, you know, just anything can kind of become a little stale. And through my divorce, that again was a little unexpected, but it is what it is. I had to, of course, have another humbling moment, kind of dust myself off and pick it back up. And so now I am the only owner of Dedicated Credit Repair. I'm one of the few female CEOs in our industry nationwide. But what it did more importantly was create another opportunity for me to have a deep, deep passion for working with clients that have had life events. Because let's face it, if you've adulted for any length of time, most of us have gone through a traumatic life event. If you haven't, God bless you, and I pray that that doesn't happen to you. But usually by the age of 40 or more, we have things occur, whether that be financial hardships, unexpected divorce or death or illness. You know, our kids can give us a run for our money sometimes. And so that's really the heart of our company, is to be the answer page, or at least a roadmap for those who are having unexpected life circumstances. Because truly, the issue we find is that a lot of lenders, even nationwide, will say, I don't want to work with credit challenged clients. That's not my people. Unfortunately, that always kind of takes me back a little bit, because you know, it doesn't mean that a credit challenged person is a bad person. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily a reflection of character. Now, it can be. Credit challenges can be a reflection of one's character, and from time to time, we come across our clients that are interesting characters, which we still have a heart for. But it is still very possible that 1 in 4 Americans who have a FICO score of under 680 have that because they changed jobs, or are having an international pandemic. Raise your hand if you predicted that last December. Okay, so no. I know I didn't. It was not on my business plan, friends. It was not.
Only Bill Gates.
Yeah, it was not in my business plan. So, you know, when these things happen, it's more important that we just dust ourselves off and have a solution. So that's where I always come from, or start with when I do these presentations. I do want to mention that I alluded to this, but the 95% of my business comes from realtors and lenders nationwide. So our programs are very, very strategically designed to help you take a buyer across the finish line in the most ethical and expeditious way possible if they have hiccups on their credit. So I do have a presentation. I will go through it. I'm hesitant to, because there's so many things that have changed that are really relevant right now with COVID, but I kind of want to do a little hybrid of what I would normally do and introduce some things and create more of a open dialogue. But I just want to first start with telling you that credit repair and debt settlement are very, very different. So first and foremost, if you are thinking of credit repair and you instantly go to Dave Ramsey in your mind or Susie Orman, you kind of need to unthink that, because debt settlement and credit repair are nothing alike. I happen to love Dave Ramsey. I live and breathe him in my personal world. Susie Orman, I can take or leave her a little bit, but she does have some good coaching. But what they teach is financial freedom, which is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal course. And most churches actually offer Dave Ramsey, and I highly encourage those to encourage their clients to do it. The downside with Dave Ramsey or those types of courses is that they encourage a consumer to, chapter 1 in his course is take your credit cards, put them, go chop them up, get rid of them, and let's get out of debt. In California or any state that what is the median price now? 400 something thousand. What is the average cost of a home? Do we know? Anyone?
In the United States, I don't.
Okay, so I know in California, it's probably unlikely that you're going to walk into a home purchase of $65,000 or $150,000 and give cash to purchase your home. Most states, especially California, it's a requirement that you take out a home loan. And if you need a loan of that size, they're going to require that you have good credit. You have decent credit at least. So I have created a hybrid version of what we offer, which is, of course, credit repair with a twist. And the twist is that we make certain that we're coaching clients on what makes excellent financial sense and good FICO sense, because unfortunately, if you just do one or the other, you're going to have an unhappy client that's not going to meet their goals. So it's very, very important that a consumer know the difference between financial coaching and FICO coaching. So we'll get into some of that today. But debt settlement, all debt settlement is a very expensive solution for someone running in a hamster wheel of debt. They cannot afford their credit card debt. They're working their brains out to pay the interest and maybe even penalties, and they really are hiring someone to negotiate their debt. The downside of that solution is that in almost every case, they're still going to get sued in the form of a judgment by their creditors. And that can become a wage garnishment. It thrashes your credit. It's considered equal to a bankruptcy from a mortgage lending perspective. A mortgage underwriter will see that type of program and say, okay, they might as well have had a bankruptcy. We're going to treat it the same. So there's almost no benefit. Now, that is one end. What we do is credit repair. Credit repair is the plastic surgery after the hardship. So it's after you've been unemployed and now you're working again. It's after your late payment. Maybe your last late payment is 6 months ago or a year ago. It's not currently late. Okay. So that's what we discern credit repair versus someone that needs to talk to someone about financial coaching. So I say that to you because the clients that you're going to refer or want to help are hopefully in the process of wanting to buy homes, which means they can't be late on things today. They can't be late 2 months ago. Okay. So I want to go with that. Now I do have some slides, but before I jump in on that, and I know I've talked a little bit about what makes us different, that we're not debt settlement, we're registered with the Department of Justice, we're extremely ethical, have excellent reviews. But I also want to talk a little bit about the idea that we're walking out some things that we haven't ever seen before. So in your industry and the lending industry and in my industry, there's been some crazy changes because of COVID. And I want to touch on them first in case I have people pop off early for whatever reason. COVID, technically the COVID-19 credit issues are not considered COVID issues unless they began late April. So creditors who have, I'm seeing things on credit reports where consumers were late in February, March, and they're trying to claim and state, well, that's because of COVID. And they're stating, no, COVID didn't become a thing, quote unquote, thing on your credit until April, because April would have been the first month after the stay-at-home order and various things occurred. So we're seeing patterns of consumers who were late in December and January and February, and they're trying to then say that their April, May, all of those payments that were late in the spring were due to COVID, and when really they're rolling lates that happened in the early winter, if not before. So I just want to be real clear that that we're taking a peek at that, because underwriters care, and of course the credit bureaus are discerning that. We also are seeing now that this is the time where a lot of people are seeing that the loans that were in deferment are no longer in deferment or forbearance or any of the fancy words in different circumstances that people found themselves in. So right now, more than ever, we're encouraging all consumers to get onto LifeLock. Go to myfico.com. Go to any website that allows for monitoring and start monitoring your credit like crazy. Because if you went into any of those programs and you were under the impression, or some of your clients are under the impression that their payments were being deferred and not, there was not going to be a one lump sum situation, and now suddenly they're being called to the table for all 3 months of deferred payments, that's a big deal, because that is covered under the CARES Act as well as the Fair Debt Collections Practices Act. So you have double protection as a consumer if that indeed happens. So we need to look at those things for all consumers who are having any hiccups buying a home if those incidences occurred on their credit. We have seen that people were proactive. In fact, we were told to be proactive. A lot of the news channels, I know KTLA and some of the others that we watch, were very, very adamant that consumers be proactive if they even considered that they were going to be underemployed or unemployed, to go seek out a loan deferment or talk to your mortgage company proactively. So many people did. They made the call and just asked and inquired what's available. And in that making of the inquiry phone call, were automatically put into forbearance. Or they weren't put into forbearance, but the words forbearance went onto their credit profile by just simply making the inquiry phone call. We have seen early on that many loans were having hiccups. Many mortgage loan underwriters were saying, the words forbearance are on this gentleman's report. We need to know why. We need documentation. And that created about a 65 to 90-day issue with underwriting. And so we were, of course, there to help get those comments removed. So there's been so many different mazes of things that have occurred in our industry. And I just want to point them out to you, just so if they come up, we already have now a couple months under our belt of working with them and solving those problems. So keep that in mind. I also wanted to mention that over the last 16 years, whenever an item was in dispute on a credit report through our program, all 3 credit bureaus would respond with a courtesy copy of a credit report in writing. So the rules of the game have always been that the credit bureaus had to respond to the consumer in the same method in which the item has been disputed. So everything we do is in writing, and therefore the credit bureaus would have to respond in writing. And 65 days ago, they decided not to do that anymore. Actually, no, it's 95 days ago, excuse me. They decided not to send credit reports in the mail. And so they're requiring temporarily that consumers pull a copy of their credit reports once a month to see if what's in dispute has been deleted. So that's created a little bit of a disaster for some of us credit repair companies, because obviously the consumer is wondering, well, how do I know you're doing what you're doing, what you say you're doing? And so we've created some easy access websites for them to go to see their results. So anyhow, wanted to touch on those hot topics. I think they've been pretty, they're of course new. And the beautiful thing about us being in your backyard is that you have a physical office location to come visit. So do your clients. But we do work with clients nationwide. So some of our clients out of state don't have that luxury. And so we're sticking to Zoom and all that fun stuff. Okay, so guys, this is going to be one of my first times doing my own share. Does anyone have any questions before I jump in? I see lots of faces. I see Rob's iPhone. Hi, Rob. Hi, you're on mute, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to do share screen, and I'm just going to assume that you guys want me to jump in on this.
And anyone, if you have questions, just put them in chat. We'll make sure we get to them.
Okay, do you guys see what I see?
I see top 20 credit tips.
Okay, do you see my cute person?
Yes.
Okay, can you also see me in the corner?
Yes.
Okay, I'll be sure not to pick my nose or something. That's good. Okay, good to know. Okay, okay. All right, so we're gonna go through some credit tips, and these are important. I have these slides available for you guys. But keep in mind, these are the top 20 questions that your buyers are gonna wanna know. So these are literally the most top 20 things that come up in conversation. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you give this information and a consumer goes, yeah, that doesn't sound like it's something I'm familiar with, always refer them to what I consider to be the credit Bible, which is myfico.com. So if you want to jot that down, it's myfico.com. Because sometimes people get different information from different sites, and the only thing we should be following is MyFICO. Okay, first things first. We need to stop accepting that we have bad credit as our reality. Now, I mention this because you guys don't even realize this, but 1 in 4 people have credit challenges. Just, that's what it is. So what that means is if you're farming a neighborhood or a zip code, you can pretty much assume that 1 in 4 people in that zip code have a 680 or under FICO score. Okay. Now that's just facts, and that's published through FICO as well. So what we know is that in order to buy a home, for the most part, FHA, VA, all the fun loan programs, you don't need a perfect credit score. You don't. You just need to get your FICO up from 640 to 680 and off you go. So our goal is to take a client that has some concerns, and back before COVID, of course, you would do open houses and people would come through the open house, and you could count on the neighbors first to always be coming through to just see, oh, this house looks just like mine. Want to see how you think you're able to get 680 for this house because I have more upgrades, blah, blah, blah. And in that conversation, that neighbor might say, I'd like to list my home. If you can sell this one at 680, I'm listing mine. My concern is that I have bad credit or I wouldn't be able to relocate. So I just want you to encourage people to stop accepting that they have bad credit. It is not hard to take someone from a 580 to a 640. It's about a 3 to 4 month process. So I want to start with that. Okay. Do your research, what to look for, what makes a company legal and ethical. Well, I've shared with you that the Department of Justice regulates heavily credit repair companies in the state of California. You'll find that there are not many, I think there's 10 of us actually, that are not law firms that are actually doing this and have been for years. This is what sets you apart from someone else who's referring to a gentleman who does credit repair as a side hustle and meets people at Starbucks. Not a good idea. When you're working with people's credit and financial situation, you got to make sure, just like you would refer a licensed pool contractor or a licensed pest control company, you need to do the same with especially when it comes to people's finances. And so I wanted to mention that. Got to do your due diligence there. Okay. The most important thing I can share to kind of educate you is the, oopsies, I don't want to go back, I'm afraid to. The 5 FICO score points. Okay, so if you picture the FICO score as a pie chart, okay, you're going to see that 35% of your FICO score, which is the largest component of the FICO score, is your payment history. 35%. So what's crazy about that is that most people don't know that, and they go, what, 35%? That should be 90%. If I've missed payments, I can see it, but I've never missed a payment. So how is my score low? Or why isn't it 800 if I've never missed a payment? So we're going to get into a little bit of that, but I just want you to know that only 35% of it is your FICO score is your payment history. However, that is the most important part. So that's the part that we work on internally, is to help clients improve 35% of their score. I want you to write this down because you'll forget, and this is huge. When a consumer misses even one 30-day late, or they have one 30-day late hit their credit. So that would mean you're 31 days late, for example. When that hits your credit, you will lose 60 to 80 FICO score points within the first minute of that thing hitting your credit report. 60 to 80 points. So this is why I ask people to have a little compassion for individuals who've gone through a divorce or a death of a family member or anything. 1 30-day late on a medical bill, 2 30-day lates on a medical bill, 90-day lates of medical bills, boom, you're no longer an A student. Quite frankly, you're a D-. So it doesn't take long to go from 15 years of amazing credit to 90 days later being considered a D student. So 60 to 80 points within the first 30 days of a brand new 30-day late, okay? Now, if you bring the account current right away, you say, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was late, or they were supposed to take my payment and they didn't, it didn't go through, and you bring it current within minutes of discovering the 30-day late, it does not remove it from your report. And that is the biggest misconception that my clients have. They'll have collection accounts, they'll have things on their credit, and they'll say, yeah, but I paid that. And we say, good, because it stopped the bleeding from the additional 30-day lates and icky things on your report. But it doesn't undo the negative payment history that has been reported on your report. And that's why it's so important that we get those things removed, okay? So 60 to 80 points with one 30-day late. The late payments or any negative item stays on your credit for 7 years, okay? And we call the recency factor 4 years. So any 30-day late that's within 4 years old or newer is considered a brand new late payment. And again, that's difficult for clients to consider. Like that happened a long time ago. That was 3 years ago. And it feels like a long time ago, but in the world of FICO, it's considered a brand new late payment. So I just wanted to make sure I discussed that with you. Okay, the second biggest component of the FICO score, which is almost always missed, is a consumer's utilization of credit, okay? And so what that means is that in order to have 30% of your FICO score in optimal ranges, a consumer has to have 3 to 5 revolving lines of credit. And so what that simply means is credit cards, okay? So a car loan is an installment loan. That's not a revolving credit line. Student loans are installment loans. Many medical loans or furniture loans are installment loans. And the difference between an installment loan and a revolving line of credit is just a matter of when you pay an installment loan every month, you drop, your bill drops, or the amount that you owe drops to a maxed out trade line. In other words, you always owe, you're always maxed out. So like, for example, when you get to the very last payment on your car, it closes the account. So a lot of people will get to the very end of their lease, pay off their final payment, give themselves a huge, well-deserved pat on the back, and then log into their myfico.com account and see that they lost 80 points on their score. That's really, really unfortunate because, again, the FICO score should reward us for doing something great like that. And instead they go, oh, thank you very much, Tiffany, for paying off your credit or on your car. You did great. But guess what? Now it's closed and you lose all the positive payment history that was positively being reported on your credit. So I always tell consumers, you know what? Sometimes the reason why your FICO score is a 740 and not an 820 is because you don't have 3 cards that you're using. Or maybe you have 9, which is excessive. So really, truly, the sweet spot in the FICO score is keeping 3 to 5 open credit cards. Now, they don't want them just open. They want them used. Now, why is that? Because the FICO score is not designed in favor of Miss Lauren. Okay, we love Lauren, but it's not designed in favor of Lauren. It's designed in favor of the credit card companies. The credit card companies do not prosper when we follow Dave Ramsey and we pay off our debt and we live debt free, right? So what do? They say, no, we're going to penalize you for having what we call an inadequate or thin credit profile. So it's not enough just to keep the credit cards open. You got to use them. So keeping them at 0 balances, although financially wise, in my opinion, not FICO savvy. So the best way to manage that game is to do all the things. That's my new thing, all the things. So you need to, buy a tank of gas, put your groceries on it, do the activities of daily living from time to time on a credit card. Make 1 minimum payment. The second or third month, pay it off in full. Then leave it alone for a month or so. Then use it again. All they want to see is a pattern of on-time payments and usage. It does not mean that we as consumers need to go into debt. So I just want to make that clear. Use them, make on-time payments, but not using them is called credit avoidance, and you do get penalized. Okay, so I just want to mention that. Now, 3 to 5 credit cards is revolving lines of credit. It's okay to have a car loan, of course. It does build credit. Especially for young people, it's not a bad way to start. But more importantly, I just want to make mention that if you need credit and you don't have credit and you've got bad FICO scores, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. The option for the consumer would be secured credit lines. And that's just simply you walking into a bank, opening up a secured credit line, which is like a prepaid Visa, for example. Give yourself $500 credit line. The bank will report it like a traditional credit card and you use it. And then after about 6 months of on-time payments, the bank typically will refund you the unused portion and then offer you a credit card. So it's a baby step way for a young person and or someone who's hit some hard times to open up a credit card and get that 30% of their score operational. Okay, so there's that.
Tiffany, I do have a question.
Okay.
You're talking about FICO scores.
Yeah.
It says, does the use of the phrase FICO score specifically mean FICO, or is it a general description of all three major credit reporting agencies?
Such a good question. That's on one of my next screens, so you're going to save me from that one. Thank you. So, excuse me. The FICO score is designed by Fair Isaac Corporation, and it's the one that we all live or die by. It's the only one we need to care about, to be honest. However, Fair Isaac Corporation, which is what FICO stands for, is complicated. So there's about 9 different FICO scores, even within FICO. There's an auto FICO, there's a mortgage FICO, there's a bank card FICO, there's an installment FICO, and then there's the variations of each. So FICO is what we need to care about. Now, when we go to TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, which are the main 3 data furnishers, everyone knows, you go to those websites and you get a score and you go, wow, I'm a 680. I'm surprised. I'm a 680. That is not a FICO score. Even though it comes from TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, it's actually what we call a Vantage score. The Vantage score was created in the 80s by all 3 credit bureaus who came together to collaborate and saw that there was a business of creating a scoring model. And they had hoped that credit card companies would take to it and use it, because why wouldn't they? It's TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. The downside is that the version that they created was more accurate and, quite honestly, more in favor of the consumer. So typically the score on the Vantage score is higher. That's why people get annoyed when they go to Credit Karma or myfico.com and then they see that their scores are not really what their mortgage lender saw. So thank you. That's a really good question. I'll have more on that here in a minute too. 15% of the score is the next section. The next section is 15% of the score is your credit history. So this is where the chicken or the egg game gets annoying, because you sit through a consultation with me or one of my team members and we tell you, yep, 30% of your score is damaged because you don't have credit or enough credit. So we send them out to obtain credit lines and we tell them where to go and what to do. They do that and their score drops 25 points, almost immediately, quite frankly, if not more. They go, well, you just told me to do that. I'm like, yes. But the problem is that when you do that, the new account that reports has no seasoning or no history on it. So they actually take points away for the first 90 days or so of a new credit card or a new account opening. So, but it's important because after you've paid on that account for 3 to 6 months, the score will not only go back to where it was, but it'll actually kick in another 15% will be reported, which is important. So as you can see so far from the first few things we've discussed, all of the things that go into the FICO score take time. So when a consumer comes to us and they say, yep, fell in love with the house, and by the way, my lease is up next month and I need my score up 100 points and I only have 45 days. Well, the difference between our company and an ethical company is we would tell them, so sorry that you waited to the last minute, because this is not a last minute thing. It just isn't. And there is no magic eraser, and no ethical company would tell you that. So truly, if you have a client that's in the market of buying a home, you need to be really transparent with them. And as are we. This is especially with COVID, this is a 4 to 6 month process on average for clients. It's still, to me, when I look at credit reports and I see 4 or 5 years of negative payment history, investing 3 to 6 months in your program should not be considered a long period of time. But just wanted to mention that. Okay, the last of the 5 factors of a FICO score are what we call new credit, otherwise known as inquiries. Okay, and inquiries are simply when someone else runs your credit. and it'll affect the score 3 to 5 points every single time. There's a hard inquiry, which is anybody else running your credit. The only soft inquiry is you going to any of the credit monitoring websites and pulling your own credit. That is not a hard inquiry. You could do it all day long if you want to. 0 points are taken when a consumer runs their own credit on any credit monitoring site. But unfortunately, when you apply for utilities even, a lot of times they'll tell the consumer this is a soft pull. It's not a soft pull. There's no such thing as a soft pull other than you pulling your own credit. So I want to mention that. Okay, I also want to go through something that a lot of people, this is kind of a misconception. People will say, well, that's really kind of not a big deal because it was only my Gap credit card, or it was only my Kohl's credit card, or it was only a gym membership 30-day late. It wasn't my mortgage payment 30-day late. And I just want to be extremely open with you all that one missed payment, doesn't matter what it is, has the same consequence. The only differentiation at all is when an underwriter looks at your credit. So do they care a little more about a recent mortgage late? Yes, but the FICO score itself does not care less about one type of late versus another. So that's really where the misconceptions come. And I think a lot of times people go, well, I was told that a mortgage late is worse than such and such. And I think what they're referring to is the mortgage underwriting guidelines, not the FICO score. Okay, just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. We did talk about this briefly at the beginning, that bringing a negative account current doesn't increase your scores. Now, interestingly enough, we have found over the last 90 days that if you are on Credit Karma or you're monitoring your credit through Experian and you have a collection account and you pay that collection account, we're seeing that the Vantage scoring model is increasing when you pay a collection account. The FICO score does not, and quite honestly, it actually drops the FICO score when you pay a collection. The reason for that and the FICO score is that it actually reactivates the date of last activity on the credit profile. In other words, it made it new again. It'll say settled for less than the amount owed. The date is 2020 when it really first happened was 2017. So FICO still takes points away when you pay off a collection account. The Vantage score is actually increasing, but unfortunately nobody uses the Vantage score. So I just wanted to make mention of that. Now, sometimes mortgage underwriters will absolutely require that certain collection accounts get paid. So that's why our company is so important, because once the collection accounts have been settled, then we will dispute them for deletion. And it's the deletion of the paid collection that brings those scores up, not the payment of the collection in the FICO scoring system. Does anyone have any questions before I continue? Do I have a chat thing? Could someone unmute themselves and tell me, because I have like literally no way to view it.
Yeah, there are, I had to step away for a second. Is it better to pay off installment loan or pay off credit card debt?
Okay, so 100% pay off. Well, first of all, let me say this. From a FICO perspective, you'll want to pay off your revolving credit because that's where the score increases happen. From a financial solvency issue, you know, I think it might have been Vicky even not too long ago. I went through a divorce and ended up paying off, worked my tail off to do it, but I paid off my pool loan and I paid off my solar. Mostly because at the time I was a single mom and it scared me to death to have it, even knowing what I know. So I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna owe my house and my car and that's it. And what happened was I went from an 830 to, I wanna say it was a 760. Which, you know, from an ego standpoint, as a credit repair owner, you know, it wasn't fun to like, you know, have a 7 something, but at the end of the day, so much better in my heart to not have that concern right, you know, over my head. So the answer is, it kind of depends on what your goals are. If you're trying to buy a house, even though we all want to be an A+ student, there's no better rate for a 760 than an 840. So at that point in time, I feel like it was a win-win for me. But when you pay off an installment loan like a pool or a car or solar, your scores drop because you close the account. You don't have an open line of credit at your the Chevrolet dealership. You once you're done, it's paid off and closed, and that's why it is that way. Now, if the loan that you paid off was 8% interest, and you're saving your cash flow is better, then that's where we have to talk and make sure that we do that in a time period that's not going to affect the home ownership process.
Cool. There's a couple more. Thanks, Tiffany. How soon will FICO score respond after doing the repair steps? And how do student loans affect FICO?
Okay, so I'll start with student loans because student loans are like the worst thing in the universe. And I will say this, and I hope you don't know me well enough to know but I do tell my young clients that I talk to in junior college, and also the high school kids that I mentor regarding this. I almost want them to sell a kidney or something before they're late on those things. They're a disaster to get removed. 30-day lates on especially a federal student loan are really, really hard to get removed. There are a ton, though, of forgiveness programs where you can contact the company or the loan provider and actually get back onto a repayment plan. The general program that we're seeing out there is that 9 consecutive months of a re-established loan, they will agree in most cases to delete the negative history from the report. The problem is that these kids or younger people, not to say that all students are younger, but sometimes the younger they are, the less knowledgeable they are, in the sense that they haven't been told to really monitor to make sure that their loans didn't come out of deferment. Because a lot of us go into those loans going, okay, cool, I'm deferred until blah, blah, blah. Well, next thing you know, it's 8 years from now, you didn't even think about it, and you're out of deferment, and there's 30-day lates racking up for 2 years. And they're super hard to get removed. So my biggest thing is I do have some avenues for that. We don't even try to get them removed because they don't come off with us. So that's not my bread and butter client, but I do have a super huge heart for helping consumers in that situation, because there are some resources available for that. In terms of how fast does the credit score go up, or FICO score, excuse me, go up? Right away. So when you have one 30-day late deleted off your report in our program, the scores go up. The maximum benefit, though, is only 35%, because your FICO score only concerns itself with 35% of it being your payment history. But for example, if I receive a referral from a client that's a 580 or maybe a 560 FICO, generally speaking, that person on average has about 20 to 25 derogatory payments with all 3 credit bureaus. Okay. And that could be collections, repossessions, charge-offs, bankruptcies, you name it. If only a third of those 20 are removed successfully, you're up approximately 100 points. So I don't have to be perfect and have a perfect deletion rate for a client to become home buying ready. Let me put it that way. Okay. But the more recent the late payment, the harder it is to remove. So I do make certain that all clients, so all clients have to have a free consultation. We don't, because we have to bill in arrears, meaning month to month after we work, because a lot of times our clients don't pay their bills. We're often on that we don't get paid because we have to work, and then they pay us every month after we've performed for 30 days. So we're looking at that when we're doing the consultation. We want to make sure that they're not late on things now, because if they're late on things now, we can't assume we're going to get paid either. So that's something that we do carefully look at. Okay, I want to talk about bankruptcies.
One last one, and then we'll let you move on.
Yep.
So then what's the point of the Vantage score? And then in the follow-up, someone said, no one uses Vantage score. I thought that's what lenders use. I think you touched on it, but maybe go over that again.
The Vantage score was just a really a huge attempt for TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax to make more money. They're already the go-to resources for credit data furnishing. Because people go to them and they furnish the data, creditors pay TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax to report data. They realized, listen, the FICO score is copywritten. We need to come up with our own copycat version of it. And so they did. And so when people go to get their reports, even many of us didn't know that wasn't the real score. It's a copycat version. And to be honest, other than giving you an idea of what your scores are, there's kind of no point to it. So it's disappointing. What I will tell you though, is that when the Vantage score is trending upward, so generally is FICO. And also the FICO score moves up much quicker. So I have seen people be monitoring their credit on Credit Karma while they're in our program, and they call us and like, oh, my scores aren't moving. They've only gone up 12 points. And we go, okay, well, at least it's going up. Let's look at FICO. FICO's up 45 points. So again, it's all across the board, but the true score that everyone uses is FICO. Now, mortgage lenders use mortgage FICOs, and your auto FICO is your auto FICO. So if you have a voluntary repossession on a motorhome or a recreational vehicle, your auto FICO is going to be very much lower than your mortgage FICO. It's just different algorithms used to determine various risk factors. Is there any other ones?
Nope.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I'm officially going to get LASIK. I swear to you. I'm like, it's awful. And my glasses give me a glare. So sorry. I'm useless when it comes to reading right now. That's why this is so big on the screen. Okay, bankruptcy. We're starting to see lots and lots and lots and lots of bankruptcies. It reminds me of 2010 all over again. Now, the difference, though, is that a lot of the bankruptcies that we're seeing are not because we had a bad economy, quite the opposite, actually. We're seeing over-leveraged consumers who didn't learn from 2008 and 2010. I'm also seeing lots of people with repeat bankruptcies that are on there. So I want to mention, if you have a bankruptcy that's been discharged, it can also be disputed for deletion. And I want to go through that at the end because I think that's kind of important that you guys know how we do what we do legally and ethically. So I will end on that. But just know that the accounts that are included in a bankruptcy are financially forgiven, depending on the type of bankruptcy, but that doesn't mean they're not still impacting the FICO score. So although they may say zero balances next to them, they're still derogatory. So they need to be deleted. We need to try to get them deleted. The bankruptcy and the accounts that are included in bankruptcy are considered negative. So again, during consultations, I can't tell you how many clients tell me, well, that was included in bankruptcy. Like, I know it was, but it's still affecting you. Okay. We just mentioned this, so I can go quickly. Paying off an open collection account will drop your FICO scores. Apparently, the Vantage score is increasing when people do that. So good for the Vantage score. Too bad nobody uses it. Okay. All right. So I don't like the words never. I need to change this. But regarding credit cards. So when you have a FICO score that's 700-ish or higher, you have a little bit more leeway. So for example, I have a airline credit card somewhere. I won't show it to you. Actually, that'd be weird. I have a credit card. And I use it all the time for at the end of the year, actually, because I want to make sure that I get my points for things. So I put my payroll on it sometimes for like 2 or 3 months in a row so that I can get the airline miles. And I max that bad boy out. But I make certain that I pay it off. I'm able to do that without it penalizing me because I've already earned my spot in FICO land. But consumers who are 580-ish, or credit challenge, which remember the definition of credit challenge is 680 and under. When you're in the lower FICO ranges, you cannot max out your credit card. And by the way, your maxed out amount is 50%. So if you have $1,000 credit card limit and you've used 500, in common sense world, that's only halfway. But in FICO scoring world, it is actually considered maxed out at 50%. Okay, so keep that in mind. Consider 50% maxed out in your mind, and a consumer will see an immediate increase in their FICO scores when they pay their credit cards down to the optimal level of anywhere between 25 and 35% usage. Okay, so that's the key ingredients. If your client's only lacking 30 FICO score points to buy a house, before you ever call me, tell them to pay off their credit, or pay it down, I should say. Okay, paying it down will boost the scores within 30 days. Now, the word never freaks people out, but when you pay off your credit cards in full and you've had credit challenges, it is not uncommon for that credit card company to say thank you very much and they close your account on you. We don't want that. So it's better to pay gradually down than a shock, what we call a credit shock. Don't shock your credit. Don't pay a ginormous payment, because oftentimes that credit card company will drop your limit to the amount that you owe, if not close it. So better to pay down gradually than a drastic payment off. Okay. A lot of times I'll just talk to clients too during the consultation and give them a roadmap as to which accounts to pay off in what order to maximize their FICO score bang for the buck. And that is part of their consultation. Also, by the way, when I say I tell clients, yes, I do consults, but I have a humongous team of credit analysts and they all do the same. So it's not just it's us, I should say, we. Okay, now this one I can for sure say never on. Never close credit cards, okay? When it comes to your score, So remember, your credit cards being closed, it kills your credit. You're going to lose about, gosh, sometimes even 100 points from a couple credit cards being closed, because you basically said no more positive history reported for me. And sadly, I have clients that will do all this work to get out of debt, and then they'll close the credit cards because they say, okay, good riddance. I don't want you in my life. And boom, their scores tank 100 points. And then I'm sending them out to obtain new credit cards. So it's just something you don't want to do. If you don't want to use them, that's different. You don't have to necessarily use them. Although, as I said earlier, it's better to use them than leave a credit avoidance issue on the FICO score. So it's a delicate dance, I guess, is really what they're wanting to see, that you don't avoid credit, that you manage your credit. Okay. I used to tell people not to pay off their car payments, if possible, for 3 to 6 months prior to buying a house. Right now we're saying 12. So obviously this is unavoidable if you're at the end of your loan, right? So if you have a client that's about to pay off their car, we need to be talking to them about things they could be doing to offset the enormous deduction that's going to happen from the payoff of the existing loan to, oh, by the way, because I had paid off the car, I had to buy a new one. And now there's credit inquiries from a new car purchase, a new loan reporting, and all of a sudden your scores are just, 100 points lower. We're also seeing this with refinances. So homes that are being refinanced at 2.8%, 3% interest, that happened. The same thing happens. You just paid off your previous mortgage loan. Then you went into a new mortgage loan at a lower rate. And that is two sides of the coin being damaged. Did I see a chat thingy?
Yes. Someone said, excuse me, I'm trying to get lunch in here.
Oh my gosh, I
for my next meeting. Did you answer my question about maxing the credit card each month and paying it off each month? Does this hurt FICO? I think you kind of just addressed that.
I did. However, again, if you're in the 700s and you're maxing it out every month, and paying it off, that's different than somebody in the lower FICO ranges. So we went through that. You don't want to do it if you're a low FICO score range. Okay, credit gardening. I don't really love FICO, to be honest. It's created a job for me, so I'm grateful for that. But in terms of FICO, very rarely do I like something that they do, and I do like the credit gardening. Credit gardening allows, it's kind of a more recent thing. It's about 2 years old. Credit gardening is something that was a term created by FICO that essentially allows for a season in your life to be difficult. So for me, 2 years ago when I went through my divorce, by the way, I'm remarried to the most incredible man, by the way. That's a whole nother story, but just want you to know. But moving on, during that really crazy time of going through a divorce, I had to do a lot of things. I had to remove myself from 3 very long standing seasoned credit cards that we shared. So I removed myself. That basically I lost tons of points for doing, but I was happy to do it. Like I told you, I paid off my lease was up on my car. I had to refinance my house. I had to pay off a pool loan. I mean, literally you could not, there was not one part of my credit that was not untouched. And so it was a shock to my credit. Well, it used to be that type of what we call season or credit season in your life lasted for 4 years. It had a 4-year impact on you. Now they say we're allowing for a season of credit gardening. So they're going to say, after you have gone through and you've moved a bunch of pieces of your credit pie, leave it alone for 12 months. If you leave your credit alone for 12 months, meaning you're not selling and buying and doing and going, your score rehabs way faster and they'll give you all your points back from that. So I'm grateful for that. I see it really helping my clients. They're seeing that their scores are automatically going in an upward aggressive motion within 12 months rather than 24 months or more. So my biggest advice to you, if you're going through that in your life and you're making some changes, just do them all at once if you have to, and then leave it alone. Don't run your credit. Don't go to Kohl's at Christmas time and open up a card to save 25% at the register. Just stop, and you'll be fine. So it'll be a lot faster recovery. Okay, never ever dispute items online. This is interesting because I have my own sister who always seems to do all the things that I tell her not to do. She's older than me, so she should listen. She is one of those that goes on to Credit Karma and all the other websites and just disputes things on her own, even though I own a credit repair company. And in that process, I will see sometimes, wow, she got something deleted like within 5 minutes. It's crazy. It feels like it's almost overnight. In every situation, it gets reported back on a credit report. The downside of taking that risk is that if it's not deleted, then it's flagged by the credit bureaus as an item that's in dispute. A mortgage lender cannot put you into a mortgage loan if items are in dispute on a credit report, okay? And it's very hard to get them removed from that status when you dispute online. So don't dispute items online. You want to dispute everything in the mail. If it could be done online, we'd be doing it. It would save us a ton of money and it'd be super fast. Don't do it. Don't dispute online. Okay.
Tiffany?
Yep.
Hi, honey. Listen, I'm gonna have to jump off to another meeting. Don't slow down because this stuff is really good, and as long as I've made you co-host.
Okay, perfect.
So you can end the meeting, whatever. I'm sorry, guys, but I got double booked.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you too. Thanks. We'll be in touch, Tiff.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Never contact the original vendor as the first approach. So I just